Waiting for it to get settled. Thank you. All right. So we've now recorded attendance. That's excellent. Everybody's here. So now we have the agenda in front of us. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to review it, and I would be looking for a mover for the approval. Thank you, Mr. Cross. Is there a seconder to approve the agenda? Mr. Kerr, thank you. And if there's no changes or discussions, I'll call the question. All those in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? There being none, we will go forward with this agenda. As we get going, we welcome you all, and we recognize that we're on the unceded traditional territory of the Peskotomuhkati people. Sorry, pardon me. We look for declaration of conflict of interest if there are any tonight. Yes, sir.
Number PAC 240106.
All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Being no one else. Perfect. All right. So we have included in our packages tonight minutes from the meeting of November 15th, ably chaired by our co-chair, Mr. Cross. Thanks very much for that. And everyone's had the opportunity to review these minutes. There's no discussion. Can I have a mover to approve the minutes? Councillor Harlan, thank you. Seconded by Mr. Kerr. And if there's no further discussion on the minutes, all those in favor of adopting the minutes of November 15th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none. Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, so we have some agenda items tonight. The first is the annual report for 2023, just detailing our activities for the year. And I think that one thing that I did forget to put in the report, but I think of it every day and I seriously mean it, that we do appreciate the support and guidance that we get from town staff and from the planning office. So we are very grateful for that. So that would be in addition to the report. So if anyone has any questions or any discussion on it, anything I should have maybe addressed that I could go back, and if not, there's a motion to adopt the report. Really? Well, then I move that we accept the report for the 2023 year for the PAC committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair or Mr. Co-Chair. And if there's nothing else, all those in favor of adopting this report, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? There being none. Thank you very much. Moving on to our next agenda item presentation, or rather, this is an actual zoning and subdivision private access request, PAC 240103. This is a private access request from Ross Ventures Limited for PIDs 01231729 and 1586950. And we have a planning report at this time. I will turn it over to Ms. Burford. Hi.
Good evening, everyone. Just going to share my screen. Okay, so as you said, this is a Ross Ventures Limited subdivision application. And the summary of the application is creation of a Class 1 private access for the development of land. This is the subdivision plan here. You'll see Ocean Way comes off of Glebe Road, and this would be one of the lots they were wanting to create, and a new access coming up through, and a private access going up to accommodate these lots along here, and then another small private access coming to a cul-de-sac to accommodate the lots up above here. So the background, The proposal is for a 9 residential lot in Shamcook, located off the Glebe Road. And this development has been going on since about 2001 or 2000, sorry, and they have about 34 lots created. The property is zoned rural under the Shamcook Rural Plan, allowing for the proposed use of residential. The property is subject to the Town of St. Andrews subdivision bylaw standards, so minimum width of 20 meters and a total length of cul-de-sac shall not exceed 365 meters from the point of access from the public maintained road. And another section of the bylaw does say a developer seeking a subdivision shall engage a professional engineer and submit engineer drawings regarding the design of the access and subdivision services subject to the approval of a municipal engineer. So in the statement of public interest regulation, the policies relevant to this application is avoid development and land use patterns that may cause environmental or health and safety issues. Respect to development that occurs in the community with no existing or public infrastructure services, development in locations with previously constructed and actively maintained roads. Promote land use and development that are not expected to increase the impacts of safety on costs associated with flooding, natural hazards. And lastly, promote land use and development that incorporate mitigation measures with respect to flooding and natural hazards, or that are appropriate for areas subject to natural hazards. And the purpose of the policy is to balance the need for development with planning for the development in safe and appropriate ways. It's less expensive to prevent or mitigate risk that reactively responding to disasters to the unintended consequences of unplanned development in at-risk areas. So this is the Ocean Way access coming off of Glebe Road. You'll see there's a sharp corner here as you're going around. There's actually a mirror here on the pole, so you can see when you're coming down to see if there's any traffic coming in off the Glebe Road. This is the access coming in, and you see how wide the access is here. And this would be another access that's coming off. The proposed accesses are not completely created yet, but this would be typically what that cul-de-sac to the left on the subdivision plan that I had shown. That would be the typical cul-de-sac going up into the development. This is an aerial view of the development. You see this is the access point coming in off of Glebe Road, and the road comes in. The development would be in this area here. So in the pictures I showed, there was the cul-de-sac that's right here, and they would be extending the cul-de-sac and coming and doing a longer access up through this direction here. And you can see that the road is quite long now. It does come all the way around right to the right to the coast there, and comes around back over to here, and then there's the road that comes through here. So there's only one entrance and exit to the development. So PAC is being asked to consider an extension to existing private access. The proposed application does not meet the standards of the subdivision bylaw for width and length of the private access, so the narrowest width being 6.96 meters, and you can see that in the plan. It is very narrow in some sections of it, and the length to the development is 490 meters. The access does not meet the standards meant to provide adequate access for emergency vehicle response and emergency egress. The development has one egress, regress to a publicly maintained road. Should a natural hazard take place within the development, the safety of people, property, and emergency services are at risk. And when providing a decision, PAC should consider reducing land conflicts by encouraging residential development in locations where natural hazards are not a concern for the safety of people and property, such as wildfire, because of adequate egress points into and out of the development. And therefore, it is the opinion of staff that the application should be denied as it does not meet the standards of the subdivision bylaw nor the statement of public interest regulation. And so the recommendation is that the Planning Advisory Committee deny the private access for the development of land as shown on Plan Roth Ventures Limited Subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for the planner? No questions? All right. I don't want to rush anyone. Thank you.
Judy, in Did you have any discussions with the planners when they developed the plan about the second egress? Or was that ever even discussed, or they just put the plan there and that was it?
Uh, Initially, when they first had talked to me with the application, they were looking at using Dock Road as an access. Dock Road is not a publicly maintained highway road, so therefore it's non-designated, and they cannot access off of Dock Road. If Dock Road was a maintained public road, they would be able to get an access permit. But because it isn't maintained, they cannot get an access permit. So therefore, we couldn't accept the application with Dock Road access on it.
Okay, that was my exact question, because I mean, there's tons of land that borders Dock Road. Easy to drop in a second entrance and exit, but if it's not maintained, okay, that was my really only question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the committee? If not, we would hear from the applicant at this point.
Judy, do you know if the applicant was supposed to arrive tonight? Or be present?
I sent the report out and heard nothing back from the applicant.
The answer is no.
All right. Well, if anyone from inside the polling area wants to add, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what file you're here for, so I'm going to keep offering you all these opportunities to speak. Anyone?
Madam Chair, just to note, the town did not receive any correspondence or feedback from the polling area that
Oh,
was
all right.
distributed.
And there's no one up there. All right. All right, so then we turn it over to the committee for our discussion. Or a motion, whatever is your pleasure.
Just one comment. I think in light of the fire that was in Hammond's Plains in Halifax, and then the Stein Lake fire that we had here, and there's one egress, and it doesn't meet the standards. To me, it's a non-starter.
All right, is
That's my thoughts and comments.
no, that's perfect. That's what we're here for. Yes, Dwight.
With that said, and as Judy mentioned, that Duck Road is not a public road, is there any appetite for the town to take on assuming Duck Road as a public road? Has that been discussed?
So, Madam Chair, the roads that are located in Shamcook are the property of the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. The town is looking to do some upgrades to Dock Road, but are applying for a license permit to do this upgrade and was approved in the budget for 2024. However, the town is in no position that we are seeking ownership of the road. We are looking to create safer access to the beach and support that, but beyond that, there's the town has no process in looking for ownership. And as it is an unassumed road, it is the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure and the province owns it.
Thank you very much. Does that answer your question, Mr. Ingles?
To a point, I guess perhaps in the future, if this road was upgraded, then it could be used as an access point. So perhaps the applicant is a bit premature with trying to get this, and perhaps, a couple of years, because it seems to me that this subdivision has taken a long time to develop. So maybe in future, they could actually get an access point off of Duck Road if it is upgraded.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another option. I mean, I know what I find interesting is that we have a report that's denying, which typically we don't get.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if there's other ways that we could work with the applicant in the future or the town or whatever.
Madam Chair, if I could just add on the status of Dock Road. So what it is it is a public road, but when it's public non-maintained, it has a certain designation that the Department of Transportation Infrastructure would refuse the access permit. So that what Judy was saying there is that basically you could not give an access to this until the developer were to go in and upgrade Dock Road to DTI specifications. Very expensive to do so, especially when the road had, fallen into disrepair and so on. So in a lot of cases, when they look at doing that, they're dissuaded because of the costs.
Mhm.
But there is an option for the developer to go in and, pay to install the infrastructure to make that public road meet the specifications. So it's a situation where really there's no way for staff to work with them to resolve it unless there's a significant investment.
Mhm.
So really, in staff's opinion, the only recourse is to deny it.
And then to Mr. Engel's point, if in the future circumstances change, of course, they would be able to come back with another application, I would imagine. All right, Judy's nodding, so I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Yes, Mr. Kraus.
Are we ready? Any other question? Just given in light of what has been presented and because it does not meet the requirements that we're up against here, I would actually make a motion that the Planning Advisory Committee for the Town of St. Andrews deny the private access for the development of land as shown on the plan, Ross Ventures Limited subdivision. And that's for zoning subdivision, private access, Ross Ventures Limited PIDs 01231729 and 1586950.
Is there a seconder? Mr. Simmons, thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, well, if you're all ready for the question, we have a motion to deny the application. So all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, that motion is carried.
Madam Chair, we do not need Ms. Hartford anymore, so if you'd like to.
Oh, all right, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good night. All right, moving on, item number PAC 240106. I believe this was your, yeah. Make yourself comfortable. Thank you very much. This is a variance application for PID 152046554 for Rick and Cecilia Smith. It is an application for a variance to allow for 0 square meters of ground floor area, which does not quite, it's not quite how the bylaw goes. So we will turn this over to, I guess, Mr. Henderson.
So I'm just covering Xander tonight for this file. So yeah, this is a variance request on 484 Water Street, Rick and Cecilia Smith. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna go here. Maybe I'll just slide over. Sorry about that. Okay. So the background. So it's a 0.7 acre vacant lot. It has services. The applicant is proposing to construct a 1.5 story single unit dwelling with a gross floor area of 768 square feet with a garage on the ground floor. Now, this zone requires 1.5 story dwellings to have a minimum ground floor area of 700 square feet. But that does not include garages. So when you calculate gross floor area, you have to exclude the garage. So essentially this is considered a 0 gross floor area dwelling because the entirety of the ground floor is proposed to be a garage. So that is the variance request. So a 0 square foot ground floor area. So it sounds a little bit weird when you say it that way because it's not floating in air, but it's just a technicality in terms of how we calculate gross floor area. So that's the lot. It's a pie-shaped lot there, right near the point. Again, this lot has been serviced for some time. It was subdivided several years ago with some intent, I think, from the owners to develop there in the future. This is an aerial photo taken with a drone, so you can kind of see the lot lines there and the partially cleared front and they're going to show how they intend to develop. That's a street view of the lot. And here's how they're proposing to do the development. So you can see the driveway would run on the north and west side. So away from the neighbor that you saw in the photos. And also that the proposed building is set quite far back. So over 100 feet setback from the property line shared with Water Street. So that's the top is the view of the proposed dwelling from the street. And the side, this would be the side that is facing away from the neighbor. So that's more towards the trail. And that's where the garage entrance would be. So the proposal would be to have an appearance that would be compatible with a residential character with regard to the small dwelling facing the street. And that's an example of such a dwelling that would look like that sort of A-frame style. So again, garage encompasses the entirety of the ground floor. So zero gross floor area on the ground floor, and the living area is above. So it's accessed by the interior stairway. Now, in terms of the design, the intent is to make sure that there's not a predominance of a garage facing the street. It's not a good design principle to have just a bunch of garages dominating your streetscape. And so in order for this to be compatible with the intent of zoning, it's required that it should be required that they maintain that pedestrian access into the garage and have that face the street as opposed to the garage. And again, preventing a appearance of just a standalone garage in a lot. So this would have a dwelling unit in it. It's not just a standalone garage, but you don't want to have the appearance of just having a standalone garage, which would not be permitted in that zone. So again, the applicant's considering this with their proposal in terms of how they're going to do the front of the building. And again, just in terms of the overall policy of planning, infill development in walkable and service locations is to be promoted. And this is a lot that is an infill location, serviced, as we said. It's close to downtown. It's right beside the trail, so it ticks a lot of boxes in terms of a development that should be promoted. There was a neighbor notice, and no comments were received at the time the report was given. So what staff's recommending to the PAC is that they approve the variance subject to 3 conditions. 1, that any garage doors do not face Water Street. 2, that a main entrance / door pedestrian scale faces Water Street. And that 3, the property is developed in general conformity with attached project description. The options for PAC include a motion to approve the variance and conditions based on staff's recommendation. 2, you can motion to approve the variance with modified conditions. 3, you can motion to reject the variance request. Or 4, you can motion to table this application for further specified information. So that concludes the report.
Appreciate that. Does the committee have any questions for the planner?
Yes. I guess first question, you say the stairs are external or internal?
The stairs are internal in this
Internal.
proposal.
Okay, perfect. And then the only thing I sort of have a little bit of an issue, not issue with, a question about is the recommendation number 2, a main entrance door pedestrian scale faces Water Street. That could end up having a facade of just a door and that's it, and nothing else. So I know that the elevation that they've shown is with some windows and some more articulation. I think that would be important to have. But kudos to having a design like this. I think it's appropriate, but we just have to make sure that facade reads as the front of a house. What's that?
I think that's number 30.
Right, but it's just that number 2 only says a main entrance door faces Water Street. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I may, Madam Chair?
Yes,
What I would suggest then is the committee just, if you're agreeable with the proposed conditions, you can modify that second one to include the windows as presented on the application and to clarify that, and that would make sense with the overall thrust of where the applicant's going, and yep.
would you have some terminology you'd be looking for? You do? All right, super. Would you care to make a motion?
I have a
Oh, I'm sorry.
story.
Apologies.
Not to nitpick here, but I don't know who did the drawing. But the stairs aren't gonna work there. Because you're gonna walk up or down the stairs and you're running out of headroom as you go up.
That's true, yeah. Yeah.
So the stairs, if you're gonna do that, are gonna come
Switch
across the
back.
front. That's gonna be in front of a window. Or just looking at the scale, it's gonna impinge on the front door unless they move to the back. So personally, I think that there needs to be a little better sketch. Maybe something a little closer to scale than what this is to.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So the intent with the general conformity we're really concerned about the exterior elements with this one. That's why we're not requiring them to provide like a full building sketch of how they're going to do it. It's a good point though. And the applicant is here tonight. So if, turn it back to you, Madam Chair, if you want to ask the applicant how they intended to do that, it is a good point.
Thank you. Perfect. All right. Anyone else from the committee? For the planner? If not, I will turn the floor over to the applicant if you'd care to make some comments.
That's, thank you very much for the opportunity to address the committee and answer your questions. We don't have anything to add for the proposal, but certainly happy to answer any questions you have. And consistent with what Mr. Henderson was saying previously, that's a concept of a design for the inside. And I recognize that the stairway is not going to look that way. Point on this interior stairway, we'll put it wherever it has to go to make it work basically for the upstairs, because the square footage on the ground floor is lots for garage and stairway and maybe even workshop for me. So we'll make it work for the upstairs and go around. It could be along. It wouldn't be along the front end in the way of the door. It might be along the back end. It might go right up the middle. Have spots for cars on either side. But to Mr. Henderson's point, those are concepts. We haven't spoken with a contractor, engineer, anybody yet, because I didn't think there was any point until we get through this step. That will happen if we get approval to proceed.
Questions for the applicant?
Yeah, Rick, so just to clarify, you don't have a problem with putting windows in the bottom floor to make it look like that it's a general house? Yeah, we just want to clarify and make sure you're copacetic with it and
Yeah, the intent is it look like that picture that's at the bottom of the cover letter.
Yeah.
It looks like that from the street. Can't really tell. Have to come up on the land 100 feet off the street, peer in the window, and see if it's actually right.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's probably back as far, just to get an idea, that's probably back as far as Huey's house, is it not?
Not big.
Not quite, but you're
It's
back there
just,
quite a ways.
I think I drew it on the sketch there. It's just, if you look at the picture, you can see the tree line there, the lawn, the tree line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right along there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe that's it right there. Center, okay. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, thanks so much. Thank you. All right, so anyone, no one from the polling area? And no one from the polling area. All right. We're inside. Perfect. All right, that's over to us. Committee? Further discussion on a motion or? You may.
We'll make sure we get this right. That the Planning Advisory Committee for the Town of St. Andrews approves the variance application for PID 152-04654 adjacent to 484 Water Street for Rick and Cecilia Smith, subject to following conditions. Any garage doors do not face Water Street. A main entrance door, pedestrian scale with windows as per drawing facing Water Street. As close as I get. The property is developed in general conformity with the attached project description as provided in the SNBSC staff report.
All right. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Harland? Is there further discussion on the motion? Yes.
Just to clarify, we're saying door and windows,
Yes.
not with windows. Did I hear with?
Door and windows.
Door and windows. Okay, good.
All right, so we have a seconded motion. If there's no further discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor of accepting the variance application for PID 152-04654 as read, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, that motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right, and our final application tonight. You can stay for the show, but you're not, you're certainly not obligated, yes. Well, thanks a lot for coming. All right, moving on. PAC 240104 is our next item. This is a terms and conditions for a fence for 7 Katy's Lane, PID 15209-208. Again, we're looking just to apply some terms and conditions. So we have a planner's report here. Mr. Henderson I'm going to turn the floor over to you to take us through your report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, so this is a terms and conditions application for Catherine Joan and James Everett Nesbitt. The background is there's an application here for a fence that's greater than 1 meter tall located in the front yard of a residential lot. The applicant made the request as follows: to have a fence along the property at the front and side of the house. Total height of the fence is 5.5 feet. The fence will be 6 feet inside the blue property stake at the front of the house, along with the road, which is set back about 28 feet. It will be 2 feet inside the property line at the side of the house and at the back of the house. I'll kind of go into some details. There's a few things to clarify there. So the PID is a residential lot SR zone, 66 meters of frontage on Katy's Lane. It's a large lot. In 2023, the applicant placed the fence, a 5.5 foot high split rail wood fence around the property, including in portions of the required front yard and on the municipal right of way without a development or encroachment approval. So the town confirmed that they would not approve the encroachment when it was discovered, and we began enforcement communications with the applicant. At the time, they were not an applicant, so this is where the file came from. The applicant complied and removed portions of the fence that encroached into the municipal right-of-way, and I visited the site to evaluate next steps with the applicant. So at that time, I encouraged them to apply to the PAC to obtain approval before reestablishing any fence. So to make sure that they were in conformity or they had an approval before they reestablish the fence in a particular location set further back from the road. The applicant states that they were not aware of the requirement to obtain development approval for the front yard fence. And the PC has to evaluate this application and apply terms and conditions necessary to approve this more than 1 meter tall fence in the front yard. So they described the fence as being 2 feet from the side property line, which is supposed to be 1 meter as well. But when I measured that, it wasn't 2 feet. It was 90 centimeters versus the 100 centimeters required. And this minor difference can be exempted by a development officer as a good faith error. We can vary things that are not placed in the correct location if it was deemed to be done in good faith, and I did so. So that doesn't need to be dealt with as a variance tonight. So here's an overview of the site plan. Overview of the property from GUMB, property lines. The applicant believed that their property line extended to the pavement of the road, which is not true. As you can see here, they were looking at an old survey plan, a subdivision plan that was registered on the title, and they did some measurements themselves without contacting a surveyor and ended up encroaching significantly into the municipal right-of-way. So their rough sketch here shows how they intend to bring it back. Now, none of this would be to scale, but the requirement would be to be set back in compliance with the bylaw. And you can see here, show you where they're set back at least 1 meter from the front property line. So that blue stake here shows where the corner of the fence would lie and where they'd be located relative to their side lot line. So this would be the front and side lot line. Oop. So just showing the measurement there. They actually have more than 2 feet. So I measured it and I did the conversion to centimeters. So they had 90 centimeters when I measured it. Yeah, to the side lot line. So we consulted town staff about this because it was an enforcement file initially. We talked about the encroachment. We had concerns with the encroachment as did town staff, and that was subsequently brought to council. Council confirmed that they would not approve an encroachment of that magnitude. So it was deemed to be a non-starter, and that's where they removed the fence out of the front yard. Mail it was sent to properties within 100 meters of the subject lot, and there was only one letter received in support of the application. The legal authority here is under the Community Planning Act, Section 53(3)C, which allows you to have certain section of your bylaw where things can be done with terms and conditions. You can prohibit a development if compliance with terms and conditions cannot be reasonably expected. So you can pose a condition that they're not going to be able to meet, and then add a condition to say this is prohibited therefore. So notwithstanding the fence section, a fence located within the front yard of flankage yard of any property exceeding 1 meter in height shall be subject to such terms and conditions as the planning advisory committee considers necessary. So that's where your power lies in terms of this fence application. The intent of requiring conditions for fences over 3.3 feet in the front yard is to ensure that there's a reasonable degree of transparency, and a split rail fence for the front yard would meet this bylaw intent, and it fits within the rural and ranch aesthetic that is suitable for this very low density area of St. Andrews. Again, there's no neighbors on the other side that are immediately looking at this. It's a large lot. It suits the surroundings. So staff's recommending that the PAC of the town of St. Andrews apply the following terms and conditions to the proposed fence. 1, that the front yard portion of the fence shall not be established closer than a distance of at least 1 meter from a property line. 2, that the proposed fence be maintained in a split rail style using a wooden beam, and if any gaps between the beams are filled in the future, that a transparent galvanized steel mesh or painted steel chain link material is applied. So the PAC can motion to approve this application based on staff's recommendation. 2, motion to approve the application with modified or no conditions. 3, motion in the spirit of number 2, but add a condition to prohibit the fence because the compliance with the other conditions imposed by the PAC cannot be reasonably expected. Or 4, motion to table the application for a specified further information request. So that concludes the report. Thank you.
Madam Chair, could you tell me roughly how tall the posts are?
So the post, the top of the post, I believe, is 5.5 feet.
Okay, no, it's just some of these photos, it's hard to kind of gauge.
Hmm.
They, to me, they look like maybe they're like 2 meters in height, but
Not well. If that was the case, I think that might be.
because I look at
Yeah.
this and I'm wondering, is the top rail 5.5 feet? Or is it 5.5 feet to the top of the post?
I believe it's the top of the post.
Okay,
Um,
so the top of the rail is
Yeah.
maybe 4.5 feet.
yes, that'd be what because it wasn't taller than me, and I'm
Okay,
over 6 feet tall. So
okay.
Anyone else have questions for the planner on the report? I'm not sure if the applicant is present.
I don't
No.
think so, but unless there's a different name. Yeah,
Councilman
so
James Nesbitt.
they didn't sign in with their name now.
I would say the applicants are not here. They're not represented on any of the
All right,
people
perfect.
listed.
All right. And no one from the polling area besides that one letter is here to
Ju-
speak?
Just the one letter that was received in support
Okay.
of.
Not much. All right. So it comes back to us for further discussion / a motion. Do we accept the terms and conditions?
Do you want me to read it? The motion is that the Planning Advisory Committee for the Town of St. Andrews applies the following terms and conditions to the front yard fence at 7 Katie's Lane, PID 152-09208 for Catherine and James Nesbitt. First condition that the front yard portion of the fence shall not be established closer than a distance of at least 1 meter, 3.3 feet from the property line. And number 2, that the proposed fence be maintained in a split rail style using wooden beams, and if any gaps between the beams are filled in the future, that a transparent galvanized steel mesh or painted steel chain link material is applied.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harlan. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Mr. Simmons. Any further discussion? There being none, I will call the question. All those in favor of applying the terms and conditions as indicated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Back to the agenda. We have no sign applications, nothing under new business, nothing under PAC comments unless someone wants to bring something forward. All right, let's,
Question.
okay.
It's an information question. Mainly for Alex. So in that, you said prohibited based on being able to not comply with conditions by the PAC. What would that be? I've never seen you put that there before.
Yeah.
So what would it be a condition that,
That they couldn't
yeah, that-
meet,
yeah, what would be? Like it just,
like it would have
I
to
need
be
it in my
1 foot
head.
away from their house. or
Yeah, so if I may, so it is, it's hard to create a scenario where it would be a reasonable condition that they couldn't meet, but let's say that the fence was more in the nature of a concrete wall. And it was, didn't meet any of the intent of the bylaw. And basically they were asking for terms and conditions for something which just would fly in face of the purpose of the bylaw. It's more than a meter, so it has to come to you for a decision. But it's something which you're gonna say this is not gonna be. This is going to create a barricade. This is walling off completely. You don't want that. So you could say, well, the condition in that case is that you build a wooden fence
Mm,
that is transparent.
mm.
Therefore, your application to have a concrete fence is denied. So that would
oh,
be,
I see.
yeah.
We tell them to build something else.
Yeah,
And that denies the act because it's non-conform. Okay.
they're kind
Okay,
of
I just-
rare
it-
that you'll
yeah.
see that.
It is rare that we would,
But the one instance I heard of was where someone was doing a drive-through and they wanted to do a entrance. They needed to do it was 1 or 2 entrances or something like this, but the one entrance wasn't going to work because they were going to have issues with sight distance. And the municipal engineer, the DTI official said that that proposed access wasn't going to work. Therefore, the requirement was, yes, you can have a drive-through restaurant, and you're required to have 2 entrances. Because you can't have 2, your application's denied. So
Okay.
it's something that's reasonable based on some sort of principle or standard that's established in the bylaw. And you're applying it,
but they can't.
but
meet
they
it
can't meet it.
because of restrictions of their property or what have
Okay.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Alright.
big conflict.
All right, so did that cover off everyone's questions? Cause if so, 8:47, and we've concluded our meeting. Thank you very much.